When it comes to HP gaming laptop, Omen would come to our mind. But actually there are two series, Omen and Victus. The Victus was first specially designed for e-commerce, essentially a high-end all-round laptop using Pavilion chassis. Victus has changed a lot this year with a new V logo, more colors and an upgraded interior structure based on Omen, which is totally different from the original. So how does it perform? What's the difference between Victus and Omen? After this video, you will find the answer. Let's take a look at its specs. i7-11800H CPU with 8 cores and 16 threads, RTX 3060D GPU up to 95 watts, and dual-channel RAM of 16GB DDR4 3200 MHz. This one uses a single side chip, SSD, 512GB Samsung PM9A1 with PCIe 4.0x4. A 16.1-inch 1080p gaming display with 144Hz refresh rate and 100% sRGB color gamut. The price is around $1,300. Compared to Victus 6, the exterior has greatly changed. The round logo is replaced by a glossy V, named Victus. It used to be one of the Pavilion lineup, but now it turns into a separate one. It seems that it's highly valued by HP. The laptop is made of plastic, but anti-oil capacity is better than Omen 7. Its lid can be easily opened. The display is 16:9 with a camera on the top. The bottom bezel measures 2 fingers in width. The switch is not so firm and a slight touch would shake the screen. In base panel, power brick is strangely placed. Arrow keys are shortened, as well as function keys. I said before, I really hate HP's keyboard designer. The touchpad is quite big, but moving and tapping are ordinary. As for the bottom case, on both sides are speakers. The shape of air inlet looks like V. The laptop weighs 2.47 kilograms with a height of 23.3 to 26.1 millimeters. Despite the plastic build, it is 130 grams heavier than Omen 7. Taking a look at the I/O on the left are a folded RJ45 Ethernet port, an HDMI 2.1, a USB-A, a USB-C supportive of video output, a 3.5mm audio combo jack and an SD card reader. On the right are 2 USB-As. It's enough for most users, but as an Intel gaming laptop, there is no Thunderbolt 4 port. Even the cheaper Asus TUF Gaming FX 506 has one. Now its actual test. The display is made by BIBA with a color volume of 108.9% sRGB and color coverage of 99.6% sRGB. Average E is 1.63 and maximum 3.78. Note that its color temperature is 6200 kelvins, lower than that of most laptops, presenting a yellow tint. The max brightness is 385 nits with full brightness DC dimming. Black to white response time is 10.4 milliseconds while gray to gray is 7.6 milliseconds. Gray to gray response is fast except 9% of signal overshoot and ghosting phenomenon. The display is similar to Omen 7 but number 16:10 aspect ratio and number 2K DPI. Its performance is not bad, but an average level. CPU is i7-11800H with 8 cores and 16 threads. In the Cinebench R20 loop test, it reached 4,492 at first, and remained around 4,000 later. CPU's power level soared to 93 watts at first with the temp up to 96 degrees, then dipped down to 45 watts at around 70 degrees Celsius. Later the power stayed at 90 watts for 2 to 3 seconds then back to 45 watts. Such power level is quite regular for a 15 inches gaming laptop. As for GPU, it's RTX 3060 up to 95 watts. With no dynamic boost, its consumption won't be influenced by CPU. Benchmarks are here. Time SPI, 7647, FSE 9467, Superposition, 4759. These are GPU benchmarks from 65 watts to 130 watts. With 65 watt as a base, the 95 watt version scores 117.5% and 130 watts, 132.4%. I noticed that the 95 watt of Victus 7 is slightly better than 85 watt. I'm wondering whether the 85 watt sample is too excellent or the Victus 7 performs too badly. Now let's check the real performance in games. DOTA 2 in Ultra settings, 125 frames, CSGO 460. Because of a single side chip and no mux, the FPS is okay for fluent gaming, but at a lower level. We also tested it with external displays. With MUX, it reached 185 in DOTA2, and 558 in CSGO, much better. For standalones, the 95-watt 3060 performed worse than the 130-watt one. Both Forza Horizon 4 and Tomb Raider surpassed 60 frames. Total War, Valhalla and RDR2 were of average 60. 2077 and Metro Exodus were much below 60. They can run smoothly with low graphic quality. I suggest low settings for standalones with this 95-watt GPU. In the last test of Naraka Bladepoint, I suggested RTX 3060 or higher for those into high graphic quality. To prove it, let's test with this 3060 laptop up to 95W. Switch graphic quality to high. We got 89 frames maximum, 31 minimum, 62.1 on average. The figure shows that it remained over 60 frames in the first two-thirds of time and then fluctuated between 40 and 60. We also drew a graph of CPU and GPU's power consumption, which was stable, with CPU at around 30 watts and GPU around 85 to 90 watts. The test covered a whole game, indicating that FPS drop was not caused by overheating, but the increasing complex frames. Naraka is demanding for hardware. You need to lower settings for smoother experience with RTX 3060. Particularly, under 2K, you'd better turn on DLSS to ensure FPS. Let's move to test of Adobe. PS got 859, A 1142 and PR 791. It's okay for daily use, yet not so good as Omen 7 for PS and PR, maybe a result of ordinary CPU tuning. In GPU Intensive Spec View 2020, Omen 7 performs worse than Victus16 in all respects. In a word, the performance of Victus16 is as ordinary as its exterior. It's enough for mainstream games and content creation work, but not outstanding among laptops with same specs. Then the thermals test, 25 degrees around an AVX 512 off. In stress FPU, CPU remain at 77 degrees with max 97 degrees, 45 watts and 3.1 GHz. At first, CPU's power level could reach 86 watts, and after hitting the highest 97 degrees, then dropped to 70 watts. High power level only lasted for 35 seconds. Then it fell to 45 watts, similar to R20 test result. In stress GPU, it remained at 68.3 degrees, 95 watts and 1672 MHz. In dual stress test, CPU ran at 82 degrees, 35 watts and 2.5 GHz, GPU 81.4 degrees, 95 watts and 1627 MHz. The noise was 52.9 decibels at full load, a bit lower than Omen 7. Then the exterior temperatures. The heating area appears at the keyboard's right part, with max 43.8 degrees and 41.4 degrees on arrow keys and low temp for WASD and space, both below 35 degrees, and ordinary performance. The power level of 35 plus 95 watts is pretty common for 15 inches gaming laptops. Besides, 130 grams heavier than Omen 7 with same specs, this one got 37 watts lower in stress test, but higher temperatures. So its thermals module is worse than that of Omen 7. It's not difficult to disassemble the laptop. Remove all screws to uncover the backplate. There are 2 fans and 4 heat pipes, with 1 hidden pipe for cooling power supply and VRAM. This thermal system is similar to Omen 6 PTO, but with denser blades. Its 5-volt fan makes less noise than the 12-volt one of Omen 7, with reduction on wind pressure. Under the heat pipe is an Intel AX201 Wi-Fi card supporting Wi-Fi 6. On the right are 2 Samsung DDR4-3200 MHz memory slots, working in SAGV mode. With single side chip, its benchmarks are lower than Omen 7. There are 2 M.2 SSD slots, with the left reserved for users, and the right a stock 512GB Samsung PM9A1 PCIe 4.0x4. Due to some bugs, in stress test, the reading speed was much lower than other PM9A1, especially the HD tune. It slowed down after reading 5 gigabits. After comparing the labels, we find that Victus16 uses a low-power PM9A1 with 2.8 amp rated current while 2.9 amp for others, which led to less desirable performance. But its read-write within reserved cache is faster than PCIe 3.0. The battery capacity is 70 watt-hours, the same as a entry-level Omen 7, but worse than a high-end one with 83 watt-hours. The battery lifespan was 5 hours 22 minutes in PCMark 10 test. After the review, I'll list 3 pros and cons for your reference. Firstly, the exterior temperature is not so high under heavy loads. In dual stress test, it was 34 degrees for WASD keys and 35 degrees for space, good for games. Secondly, the stock SSD performs well and slots are reserved for hard disk and thermal pad. Despite its default PCIe 4.0 PM9A1 SSD with low power consumption, it performs better than PCIe 3.0. Thirdly, black, blue and white are available. The white color is rare for gaming laptops, rather competitive in appearance. Then, cons. Firstly, MUX is inaccessible and GPU's power level is ordinary. Thermal system is potentially excellent, but the preset GPU power level is less than 100 watts. It didn't even reach 45 watts TDP in dual stress test. The overall performance is ordinary without MUX. Secondly, the 200 watt adapter is enough in dual stress test, but inadequate for games. On charge, 30% storage of the battery is consumed for Naraka. The performance could be limited with longer gaming. Thirdly, strange design for power brick and arrow keys. Both interior and exterior designs of Victus16 are similar to Omen. But users may press power bottom by mistake and arrow keys are too small. To conclude, in terms of design, Victus16 is an upgraded version of Omen 6 Pro, a twin model of Omen 7, with similar thermals, motherboard and even ports. Thus, the overall performances of the three are similar. In thermal test, Victus16 can be leveled with Omen 7 after optimization. But with same specs, it lost to Omen 7. I think HP did this on purpose to distinguish them. However, as a gaming laptop, Victus16 itself performs worse than other mainstream gaming laptops. Hope the high-end Victus can be configured with a 300 watt adapter, higher power level and MUX that can make this lineup more competitive. That's all of this video. Please hit like and subscribe to our channel. Please follow us on WeChat official account. I will talk about a laptop there every day. This laptop may be a good deal or not, but all we want is to provide info and guidance. This is BIBA Laptops. I'm Jawan. See you next time.